Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to officially open the first meeting of the new council. I'd like to call upon Mr. Greg Whiteley to come forward to do his either his oath of office or his affirmation of office.
I, Gregory James Whiteley, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council. That I will faithfully and impartially carry out functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whiteley, could you please sign your document there, please?
I think it's appropriate to congratulate Councillor.
You have to take a nice photo, and is anybody like to have a photo taken with someone who's going to be perhaps supporting you as much as possible over the next several years? Come forward, man. Come around.
Julie McGarrett.
Julie, we have had ours as well. Thank you very much. Mrs. Walker, could you come forward, please? Which one would you like to go to?
To go. I, Tina Walker, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No pretty photos, everything's right? Thank you. Mr. Kinsey, could you come forward, please? What would you like to be doing?
I'll do the affirmation, Mr. Woodward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I, Noel Richard Gordon Kinsey, solemnly and sincerely declare and confirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of the Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out my functions, powers and authorities and discretion vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much. Are you happy with the photography? Thank you very much. Mrs. Jackson, what would you like to be doing?
I will do the affirmation. So I, Rosalind Jackson, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. Dr. Quigley, come forward. Oh, sorry, some photography.
Yeah, my friend.
Come in. Come around.
See on your neck, is that?
Thank you very much. Dr. Ridley, what would you be doing?
I, Milton James Quigley, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I, Andrew John Brewer, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. Thank you very much. Very now done. Oath or affirmation?
I, Joanne Marie Van Elder, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGoski, oath or affirmation? Oath or affirmation?
No, affirmation. I, Dirk John McCloskey, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Drews.
Yes, I'll do affirmation, thanks. I, Heather Joy Druce, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much. Mr. Higgins.
I'll take the oath, Gary. I, Ronald James Higgins, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Warren local government area and the Warren Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Higgins. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, councillors. Now, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Garrett did their affirmation oaths on the, I think they were both oaths on the 23rd of December. So they are also now officially councillors of Warren Shire Council. Thank you. So the first item of business, councillors, is the election of mayor. And please bear with me because we have a little bit of work to do with some props. Councillors, may I have a move and a seconder for the recommendation to item 1 of this special report of the General Manager, which the recommendations are items 1 to 4. So that's one to note that the General Manager is or nominees returning officer for the purpose of electing the mayor. The General Manager is nominee as returning officer on the advice of any nominations for the election mayor for the 2-year term from January 22 to September 23. And in the event of more than one nomination, the council will conduct the election of the mayor by ordinary ballot in accordance with the Local Government General Regulation 2015, and the following the election, the ballot papers used in the election of the mayor be destroyed. Councillor Brewer, Councillor Bruce, move to second. Is everyone happy with no one against that proposed resolution? I declare it carried. I'd like to advise that as returning officer that there has been only one nomination for the position of mayor, that being Councillor Milton Quigley, who has formally acknowledged and items acceptance of the nomination for this position. Accordingly, as pursuant to section 3.1 of Schedule 7 of Local Government General Regulation, the returning officer formally advised Councillor Milton Quigley has been elected to the position of mayor of Warren Shire Council unopposed for the ensuing term. Would you like to come and bring your tag with you? Come over and sit with us, please. You have to bring your tag, it's at the front.
Like Councillor Walker, is that a positive? As I walk out, I would like just to say a couple of words, before we come out and just say a couple of things before we move on to the election of the deputy mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their support. It is quite humbling to be elected for a second term as mayor. I hope that very much that I can fulfil the duties and promote Warren-Shire Council in the manner that we all expect it to be promoted, and deliver the services to our community that we do expect to be delivered, and deliver them in a high standard and in an efficient way. So thank you very much for your faith, fellow councillors. Second thing I would like to say is welcome to our new councillors, Councillor Whiteley, Councillor Kinsey returning, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Belden Eldon, Councillor McCloskey. Welcome aboard. I hope you have a very productive and informative time on council. I think it's a wonderful level of government to be involved in. We see the results almost immediately usually, and we can actually make a real difference to our community. And I thank you very much for putting your hand up and standing for election. And you know, we've got 2 years and 9 months to really get stuck in and complete a whole lot of projects, but also move Warren in the direction we all like to see it go. I'd also like to thank some non-returning councillors for their time on council and record that publicly. Those being Councillor Surdity and Councillor Beach. Councillor Surdity was a great proponent in the outback art space, the public art space, the interagency space, the library. She did a significant amount of work and in my view, will be sorely missed on council. She was conscientious and did everything to the best of her ability and in a timely manner. And I pay great tribute to her work on council. The other person, councillor retiring, non-returning, is Councillor Beach. Again, did an exceptional amount of work in the area of the plant committee and particularly in the development of the showground racecourse arena and all the infrastructure work that's going out there. As I've said on previous occasions, Herculean effort to bring those 9 different user groups out there together to get the sort of result that is almost, well, nearing completion now. A lot of work has been done, but still a little to go. So thank you to those 2 non-returning councillors. I think that's all I need to say at this stage. Thank you again for your support. If you want to do any second election, because it's vested in you, thank you very much.
The item number 2 of the Special General Manager's report is the election of Deputy Mayor. Again, may I have a move and a second to 1 to 5, which is that Council continue the position of Deputy Mayor. The Council notes the General Manager is nominated as returning officer for the purpose of electing the Deputy Mayor. General Manager is nominated as returning officer advisor nominations for the election of Deputy Mayor for the 2-year term from January 22 to September 2023. That's the same term as the Mayor. In the event of more than 1 nomination, the Council conduct the election of the Deputy Mayor by ordinary ballot in accordance with the Local Government General Regulation 2005, and the following reduction of ballot papers used in the election of the Deputy Mayor be destroyed. I have a move. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Kinsey. If everyone is happy with that proposed resolution, I will put it, and so it is carried. Thank you. And as returning officer, I wish to inform Council there has been only 1 nomination received for the position of Deputy Mayor. That's been Councillor Sarah Garrett, who has acknowledged in writing her acceptance of the nomination for this position. Pursuant to Section 3.1 of the Schedule 7 of the Local Government General Regulation 2005, The returning officer will formally advise council that Councillor Sarah Barrett has been elected to the position of Deputy Mayor of Warren Shire Council to be shown the term. Mr. Mayor, elected unopposed.
Thank you, General Manager. We move on to item 4 of the agenda of the ordinary council meeting. The first of those being apologies and application for leave for absence of council. We have 2 of those, I understand.
Councillor Taylor and Barrett.
Someone like to move those apologies from Councillor Taylor, Councillor Barrett, move Councillor Kinsey, second Councillor Drews. No further discussion on those apologies. I'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting of ordinary meeting of council held on Thursday the 2nd of December. Someone happy to move those minutes? Councillor Drews happy to move those, seconder. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Drews.
Happy to move it, thank you.
Any comments, questions prior to us doing those minutes? Being nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to disclosures of interest. Now you'll note there is a disclosure of interest form somewhere on your desk in terms of disclosing any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests in any matter that comes before council today. Does anyone, any councillor, have a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest they wish to disclose and have noted? No, there are none that, as we understand it. Thank you. There are no mirror minutes. We move on to item 8 of our agenda, the reports of the committees. The first of those, well, the only one of those being the meeting held on Tuesday the 13th of December. Looking for someone to move the minutes of that meeting. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Walker, Councillor Jackson. Any comments, questions? Anything, General Manager, that you would bring attention in that matter?
Just do a quick check, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor Walker.
I noticed with the employment of someone for the vacancy care program, you've got an assistant, you know, the supervisor, and also the cleaning positions that you seem to be having trouble getting people. So how widely do you advertise these sort of positions? Firstly local and then goes wider, or?
It's all, using Facebook, the local paper, website. To a certain degree, those particular positions that we've also been trying to tap people on the shoulder as much as possible. Vocational care hasn't been able to be possibly been able to have because we haven't been able to fill any of those positions properly and fully. The cleaner, we did have someone that hasn't been able to start properly, and I'll just defer to the Manager of Health and Development Services for a little bit more information.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we have a possible candidate, hopefully passing ready today with possible employment, so for the cleaner.
So the supervisor, you don't get one, you don't have the program running.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. The legislation is that we have to have a knowledgeable and experienced educator to provide that service to the community.
Such a good service and well attended.
Just another question. We will employ a part-time temporary waste if the operator of the tip over for 12 hours a week.
That's correct, instead of someone in the Parks and Gardens.
So instead of taking someone away from within the organisation to fill those hours.
That's correct.
Yep. Also, just another question, and I might have missed the name or an acronym. 4.3 Engineering Department Matters, BEC, BEC.
It's Built Environment Collective, which is an organisation, a consulting firm that we've engaged to do our inspections and assessments for flood damage, etc., and provision of the final applications of the Transport Minister. They were the reasonably pretty experienced. They were the firm that helped Gilgandra Shire get 12 million and Bogan Shire get 7 million for flood damage in April 2020.
So when they come and do the inspection, does anyone from within the organisation go out there with them, or do they go?
No, we provide some advice. They've gone out with their special video and camera work, and then a lot of desktop work, and then, like for example, this week we're looking at their first draft restoration plan to make sure we see if we can pick up anything else.
Just for your information, Councillor McCloskey, they have videoed every road in the council road network, and then they can go back to, as the gentleman was saying, go back to the desktop and start looking their way through. But given their track record with the actually neighbouring councils, we thought it was a good that we could do the right thing by Warren Shire Council and make this
What's the anticipated time this will take and then put in the claim?
Sadly, even after the application, it took, I think, the advice to Bogan and Gill last time took somewhere between 6 and 12 months for even the claim to be accepted or final negotiating claim accepted.
This is with the RMS.
With Transport Minister.
Yeah. And then they come out as well and go through the claim.
Most probably, yes.
Yeah.
With both our people and them.
Yes.
I think we're up to 462,000 plus some change for emergency restoration work, and that went in mid-December, late December, acknowledged by Transport for New South Wales, and that's the first thing that we'll actually have to try to work on. Some of the we did about 7 or 8 roads, particularly some very heavy shoulder work, particularly on 7515 and 333. There was a lot of work done that we're hoping that we get 100% of the emergency work done, plus some major roads that well and truly needed some heavy maintenance grading to make them safe. That came to 662,000.
I'll bring to the council and the division and the engineering. I noticed the curb and gutting contract has never died, the conflict went forward. I would bring to his attention and the council's attention the safety requirements of that curb and gutting, because it hasn't been backfilled on the footpath side with the storm events that have been happening. The water from the footpath side has been transversing unbleached concrete, and as well as that, the safety of pedestrians walking with a probably 350 by 250 trench up against the inside of that.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. That's duly noted and appreciated. Thank you. Any further comments, questions relating to the next committee minutes? Being nothing further, we put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. There are no reports in item 9, reports of delegates to council. No policy reports. we move on to the reports of the General Manager. And the first of those is in relation to the rest of the committees and delegates to all the various committees and council obligations that we have externally. I think I might defer to the General Manager. So he's been on top of who's put their name up for these various committees and go through them.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Mayor, what we've done is on the board, we noted how many councillors, and also contained within the report, how many councillors are normally either on those committees or as delegates, and where they're listed. For example, Airport Committee, there's normally 2 councillors and 2 councillors have nominated. But in other committees, such as the Plan Committee, normally there's 4 councillors, but 5 councillors nominated. And as per our previous discussions, it's worthy of consideration that if there are 5 interested councillors instead of 4 interested councillors, there's no real problem council considering changing, and by that resolution right there, draft at the moment, would actually change the number of councillors on the Plan Committee, for example, to be 5 councillors. Now, to help a tiny bit, I might actually, just to make sure that everyone has that clarification, bear with me, please. I'll bring the board in to be next door to what's up on the board. It details that Just to make sure that you're
Yeah, not that one. That's just a single page. What's the email hanging on? Okay. Yep. We haven't got this in the order of
no, just move in a second with the assumption that commissioners move in a second and we just
Councillor, just to get this in order, what we'll do, I'll ask the mover and the seconder as recommendation stands in our business paper. And then with the imprimatur of that mover and seconder, we might need to change the various numbers of delegates as we go through the processes here. So is someone happy to move as per the recommendation in the business paper, item 1 of the General Manager's report? Move Councillor Jackson, seconded Councillor Walker. Now I think we're in a position to actually go through those. Thank you, General Manager, and then we can come to the sort of resolution that we're after.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So, for example, the Airport Committee always had 2 councillors, so we've received nominations from Councillor Taylor and Councillor McCloskey for the airport, 2 out of 2. And then with the Australia Day Committee, it's normally only 1 councillor will receive 1 nomination by Councillor Taylor. The Economic Development and Promotions Committee, normally there's 4, and we receive nominations from Councillor Derek, Brewer, and Bruce Jackson and quickly. With the Ulma way, so there's the first one where normally there's 4 councillors, 5 councillors are nominated. That means that's very pleasing that there's 5 interested councillors, and I say, Mr. Mayor, within reason, more the merrier, to provide input, provide help.
So that's a comment. I'm actually okay with that as well, personally, as long as the quorum that's required to run those meetings doesn't change, which in the past have been 2 councillors. So and let the numbers be whatever they can be, because that's, you saturate some of those committees with first experience and then attendance. Because not everyone can be at everything all the time, as long as the requirements for quorum don't change.
The only thing we were working on, the only thing that would change would be, where it says full council would change to 5, and within the documentation for each thing, the quorum would remain as per. We weren't working on any change apart from for example, four going to 5.
The other part, Mr. John Render, is that I think the mayor is ex officio on all of those committees. So in terms of economic development, I think you could conceivably leave my name off there, but with the view that as mayor, there is an entitlement to attend every committee meeting of council.
And that's one of the ones that you're most interested in.
Yeah, I look, I would attend. That's
Yeah.
certainly the
So
case.
and you still get voting rights as mayor.
So that just changes back to being 4 councillors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So does that mean someone could possibly, if they're interested, could go on that if you're not, if they're back to 4, or if there's an interested person in
I think Councillor Walker, councillors had the opportunity to put their names up on that, the whiteboard. If councillors were interested, I think they've probably already done that. Yeah, I think we go with basically what was.
And can I also add, anyone can attend those committee meetings, and I have, just so I can get my head around what's going on, certain ones as well through the year, so. The attendance is, yeah, welcome.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can attend, but you can't vote.
No, it's simply ex officio member of the mayor.
Only the mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Number 4, Yilmar Waste Depot Committee. Now, the staff have felt that this committee is an important committee of the council, and it's been changed from being a sunset committee to be something that actually needs to help the council, its staff, and the committee in the direction of the Yilmar Waste Depot. It's not just Yilmar Waste Depot. It's actually really a lot of garbage services, etc. So 3 councillors normally, and 3 councillors have nominated interest. The Internal Audit and Risk Management Committee is automatically the mayor and the deputy mayor. The Plan Committee, there's normally 4 councillors. Sorry, normally 3 councillors, and 5 are nominated. Staff feel that this is a pretty important committee for the future direction of the council in a major way our plan, and so we feel that 5 councillors is appropriate. With the Roads Committee, normally it's the mayor and 4 councillors, if possible, 1 from each ward. The mayor being from B ward helps signify that there's at least 1 from each ward, but we've received 5 councillors plus the mayor who are interested. Again, in the end, with roads, it's not really, let's recommend, because something's in my ward, it's really just a complete consideration of everything. So again, we believe there's no concern with actually having 5 councillors instead of the 4. Showdown Racecourse, normally there's 3 councillors, 4 have nominated. Again, importantly, committee that would be better with the 4 councillors who have nominated.
May I ask, am I able to nominate someone to be in the community position on that at the moment?
I'll put out an advertisement for the missing community rep, and then the council will make a decision on it. There's one community member that's vacant on that committee. The community representative, which when we get a chance, we'll put an advertisement out in similar fashion that we've done so the Warren Public Art. Hopefully we'll get some interest. With the Town Improvement Committee, Sporting Facilities Committee, normally normally 4 councillors, and 4 councillors have put their name forward. With the Town Improvement Committee, it's normally 6 councillors, and 6 councillors have put their name forward. With the Traffic Committee, that also includes the Development Committee, there's normally 1 councillor, and Councillor Taylor has put his name forward. And with Fire and Public Arts, there's normally 3 councillors, and 3 councillors have put their name forward. With the Water and Sewer Committee, normally 3 councillors and 4 councillors have put their name forward. The same with the Water Conservation Committee, which are kind of tied because really the Water Conservation Committee is the committee that considers and works out for recommendation to the council where required the water restrictions. So very applicable. Same councillors on both of them, and no concern again. Makes it a good strong committee with four councillors.
Can I imagine, is it worth considering rolling those 2 last ones into one? Because that Water Conservation Committee that I was on in previous council was really only over drought, and it was pulled together when it was required rather than regular meetings. I just think that it could be rolled into 2. It's probably only administration activity anyway. I don't know. And then we have regular meetings, I think, since the water and sewage will be meeting more frequently going forward.
What we can do, Mr. Mayor, is part of the resolution is that the requirements of the Water Conservation Committee be now undertaken by the Water and Sewer Committee.
Yeah.
If the mover and second are happy with that.
Yeah. I'd just like to also point out that the ward system that we are under at the moment allows us the luxury of having a number of councillors on a number of committees, and that these committees are as functional as they are because of the activity of councillors on them. So they're really, really important. And that, you know, that 14th one for me is hopefully it's not required for some time, but they're fairly straightforward meetings to have, and it wouldn't hurt to be on an agenda of the others.
So if you're like, Mr. Mayor, to make it simple, we can just go open brackets after Water and Sewer Committee open bracket now to undertake the role and responsibility of the Water Conservation Committee, both brackets. Okay. And we just get rid of water. Going to the external committees and organisations, which are delegates. Councillor Macquarie County Council requires two delegates, and Councillor Brewer and Kinsey have put their name forward. The Alliance of Western Council Local Development Authority. That also makes sure includes the Urana Joint Organisation, because it's kind of still is existing. So the Mayor and General Manager are the delegates for that organisation. Northwest Library, Central West Zone, normally 2 councillors. 2 councillors put forward their names. Outback Arts, 1 councillor. Councillor Jackson's put forward their name. The Wiring Interagency Support Services Group is normally 3 councillors, and 3 councillors have put forward their names. Just to the manager of Health and Environment Services, what normally happens with that Wiring Interagency Support, correct me please, is those councillors kind of rotate the chair.
That's correct.
You do the work in preparation for things, but the chair gets rotated. That's entirely up to the first committee meeting when they all get together, but that's normally the process.
Through the Freedoms Committee, you can also, we were setting up Zoom meetings with the interagency. Will that continue in that format? because it was hard to get everyone to go, putting everyone together to actually have meetings that could.
That's open for discussion, yeah. And also,
It can be a verbal report, it doesn't have to be a written report. And that's a delicate thing. Thank you.
The delegate to the Murray-Darling Association Region 10, normally one councillor. We did that over time when one councillor has gone forward, put their name forward. We did attempt first time round to actually have an alternate for that, but no one was interested, so we just kept it with one councillor. The precinct committee, so neutralised police committee and safety precinct meetings, whatever form they take, will be all councillors. The Macquarie River Flood Mitigation Zone Reference Group, or typical that are similar, because what happens is New South Wales Water sometimes changes their names and all sorts of things. That'll be the mayor and the general manager. Liquor Accord, the general manager, the secretary of it, and one councillor who's the chair, and Councillor Taylor's put his name forward. Warren Health Action Committee is normally one councillor, and Councillor Bruce is put a name forward. Now, the Mining and Energy Road Council is normally one councillor and the general manager, and the Central West Renewable Energy Zone Reference Group, or whatever it's something like that is normally one councillor and the general manager. They are missing. And Country Mayors Association is the mayor and the general manager. So, Mr. Mayor, we are hoping that we can find someone who's interested in the number 11 and number 12.
I make a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Really?
I was initially interested in that committee and still am, but I'm unable to make the commitment to quarterly meetings out of Warren because of my work and personal schedule. I don't know whether there's any appetite or whether it's appropriate to have a number of councillors represent council along with the general manager who's consistently at all of these meetings, and perhaps to share the burden of the quarterly trips away. I just want to say that to my fellow councillors.
Councillor Jackson, in reply to your comments, I think it's always good to have some consistency on who's going to meetings, and that's the reasoning behind just having one delegate or alternative. If you spread it too widely, it's always reinventing the wheel. People don't know exactly where they are, so take on board your comments. Thank you for that. If you can otherwise think that you might be able to commit, that would be invaluable to council.
Previously, I know I cannot commit to every quarter.
Mr. Mayor, I know that Councillor Irving was was involved in both of those, wasn't she, in the last council? I'd be willing to go on the MERV and possibly the energy zone, but I'm a little bit like Councillor Jackson in that it's been pointed out there for quarterlies for the MERV, and you do go away usually. But would it be possible, is it allowed, if I was to put my hand up to work in with Councillor Jackson? If that's with Councillor Jackson.
Sorry, yeah, that's we're going to just have one in your turn.
Yeah,
Is that,
yeah.
One. Yep. So if you're happy with that, General Manager?
No concern. What happens is the first up, Councillor Walker, you're able to go, yes, no, we ask the alternate. Previous councillor used to do exactly that. She knew there were a couple of interested councillors most of the time. The Dubbo stuff is, the reference group, the second one, Central West Renewable Energy Zone, most of the time is in Dubbo, but it does take half to 3/4 of the day even if it's in Dubbo. So there's no concern having from an alternate councillor so-and-so for both of them.
Councillor Walker, you're happy to be the lead delegate on both those committees, and Councillor Jackson, you happy to be the alternate? And between the two of
It
you,
should be the other way around.
Please, Mayor, I don't mind, and I will comment that it would be up to us as a team to keep each other briefed and across what was happening, and we recognise we have to work together to do that, so there's not, oh, I don't know what's going on. We'll make sure that each other are appraised of
let's, why don't we split it? Councillor Walker, you be the delegate to the Mining Energy Related Council. And the alternative is Councillor Jackson on the renewable energy zone. Councillor Jackson, you are the delegate, and Councillor Walker, you're the alternative. Does that work for you too?
That's fine.
All right. Okay.
Councillor White, you have a comment?
Just a question, probably because of my ignorance, is the mining and energy related councils, can you or the general manager give me an indication of what cost benefit Warranshire has been involved in?
I think it's best the general manager attends those meetings, and so I'll probably best to defer to him.
With the mining energy related councillors, this council wanted to become member because as soon as we started to have, we about 132 megawatt solar farm and a smaller one eventually coming along out of Nevertire as well. So that gives us the input to be able to, that's why that organisation changed from being mining related councils to mining and energy related councils. Both, we've had we haven't had much positive news in relation to trying to be part of the Central West Renewable Energy Zone. We attempted to try to expand it out to include the Nevertire and along from Narromine onwards out to Nevertire to take into account a good sized area on both sides of the highway. That hasn't happened at the moment. But both organisations, many mining and energy related councils have been trying to help us get back into that energy zone that might one day eventually be amended to include us. Both organisations, certainly mining and energy related, we do have some needs to actually try to improve the transmission lines, the 133 kV line that eventually heads to Nyngan and to Cobar, because it's one of the lines that Wellington needs to be upgraded because it browns out, particularly from on the other side of Nevertire to Nyngan and certainly to Cobar, brownouts all the time. That's us trying to get that fixed up could be such a good project to justify our existence. I think we only pay for about $500 or so per year, Darren. That's pretty close, isn't it, for membership? Something of that order. You know, it's not as if it's $2,000 or $3,000. It's $500 or $600 or something like that. There's 50. How close am I? There's 50 councils, mostly light councils, who are involved, and just that networking can be very helpful. Very, very similar to the Country Mayors Association. Is very valuable that way. Lots of access to ministers of a number of descriptions. We see from the Premier to the Deputy Premier and relevant ministers around that and mining and energy we meet and we are able to network with. Networking can be very valuable if done positively. That's about the 3 or 4 reasons.
Yeah, Councillor, my view is that we need to be at the table on this particular thing. The General Manager's put it pretty concisely. If you're not there and not speaking to people, you're out of the loop to a certain extent. you know, if we want to propose, there is a proposal for the solar farms, well, we want to be part of that. As it goes at the moment, transmission to the west is virtually impossible, which limits what can be done. We just need to be understanding where we are and what others are thinking. You know, it's very much centred on the Wellington area and then going east as opposed to, you know, land in this vicinity where we could set up some pretty big solar farms that could benefit, you know, the wider community. We need to know what's happening in that space to be actually able to make some inroads in there, so I think it's entirely justified.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The royalties to region project, is that still good?
It does, but it's been expanded out to many, many more shires and all council areas, but you have to have a mining or affected by mining.
Thank you.
How about anyone?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
7,100 last year.
How much?
7,100.
Mining or Labor Council?
My membership for 2021, we haven't paid 21, 22 yet, it was 7,116.71.
Has it gone up there
Haven't paid this year, haven't seen it, so I don't know.
about the previous year?
The previous year for 2019-20 was 6,936, so it went up $200 from one year to the next year.
Nonetheless valuable in my view. Just to give us an order now, we have some changes in relation to the election of the committees of delegates. With an imprimatur of the mover and second, I think Councillor Jackson moved it, seconded Councillor Hall, you second. Are you happy from what I've written here that the Plant Committee goes to 5, the Roads Committee goes to 5, the Showground Racecourse goes to 4, and that the Water and Sewerage, the Water Conservation Committee comes in under the imprimatur of the Water and Sewerage Committee? Are you happy with those changes in the recommendations? Joe, you've got all those in place then. The other point for clarity, Mr. John Major, the voting delegates on each of those committees are councillors. Yes. And, but in community, as you say, the Showground Racecourse, all those who are members of that committee are voting delegates.
The only where councillors only are within the report. So
it's not quite clear in the report. That's what I'm
at the bottom of each one. So, for example, with bottom of each one. So the airport committee is all members listed or alternate. The Australia Day committee is all members listed. The economic development is all members listed.
What I need to be clear about.
The only ones that there is councillors only have a vote are Plant Committee.
Yep.
And Roads Committee. They're the only two that councillors only.
Okay. Is there any further discussion, comments then before we move to item 1 of the general manager report relating to the election of committee members and delegates?
The other one that's very important is the audit. It's only the mayor and deputy mayor have voted on it.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further on item 1 of the general manager report? Nominations of councillors for committees and delegates to external organisations? That being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, as is part of the business paper, we've at 9:30 we'll adjourn the formal part of the meeting and invite Mr. Bob Sandell to speak to the council. And welcome also welcome Rod and welcome Tony McCurry to our meeting. Look, I think the work that the Warren Health Action Committee is doing is vitally important to our community, and we thank Rod and Tony and the group, and Councillor Bruce is our delegate to that committee for their work. Rod, very pleased to welcome you here and bring us up to speed with where you're going and where we can assist you with in terms of provision of medical services in Warren. Thanks, Rod.
Yeah, just to start, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I know you got a big day off, and time is everything. Also, I'd like to congratulate not only the new councillors, but the old councillors. As one who's done the job, it's a big ask. So, yeah, a lot don't appreciate it, but a lot do. Our Health Action Committee, did that letter go around?
Yes.
So you're aware of what went around, so I don't need to go through that again. The two items we're looking at is to try and get more communication going through our local media and perhaps through the Shire website on a weekly basis. Because what's going on, a lot of the medical facilities that are here, they're only week to week, and the people need to know when they are here. Now, the newspapers agreed, RAMS have agreed. We're still working with the MPHS, but if we can let our community know if there's a locum here, there's a specialist, or there's whatever's available, because there's an enormous amount in the health system. You know, when a lot of us, especially the more elderly, when we grew up, there was a local GP and that was about it. But health, as we're all aware, is much more specialised, and we need these specialists. And if the community don't know they're here, they don't get utilised, and the next thing, they're not coming. Because, oh, we're not needed. Well, they were needed, but the community didn't know. So we've just got to get those communication channels open. So we are requesting that we look at either the council website on a weekly update or the notice board, as well as the newspaper. The other issue, of course, that we're working on is the accommodation. And that's a big issue. Well, if we couldn't get grant money, it won't happen, but all we're requesting is that we look at saying if there is grant money available, that we put an application in for it. That may or may not mean, depending on what council and other groups want to do in the community, it may or may not mean council doing the actual work. I can mention community homes. We started with 6 units around there. We've got 14 units there now. There was council assistance all the way through, but it's been very much run by that committee. So it can happen outside of council. And I do believe that if we're successful in getting a grant either for doctors' accommodation or nurses' accommodation, it need not necessarily run at a loss. If we can get it where it's been cross-subsidised through grant funding and run efficiently, even on the subsidised rental, you can still make money. So I do believe first box to tick is to see whether we can get a grant. The hospital building 3 units over there, but they're only single bedroom and strictly for 3 months, more for the fly in, fly out. Now, for those that stay longer than that, it's up to them to find their own accommodation. At the moment, it's been that bad that some of them have been staying at the Catholic Park. And that's why Tony in particular has put his hand up and trying to get some accommodation going to improve the situation. But given the fact that Warren needs 2 to 3 doctors, 3 would be ideal if you start taking holidays into account. It becomes very difficult. The other problem we've got, there is so much money to be made out of locums, they don't want to come here for they just fly in, fly out, make a heap of money and go. And somehow or other, and it's very pleasing to have Bronnie Taylor on board. And it was an excellent article, that's why I just got it distributed around, and thank you, Gary, for that. But we need these sort of initiatives if we're going to go ahead. That's about all I've got, Tony. You've got anything to give us?
Just might update on the current situation. So I think between Rod and I, we have 10 beds available for nurses and doctors at the moment, or families. We had a doctor who was interested in coming to Warren a couple of weeks ago, and he's pulled out for, well, I'm not sure what reason, but anyway, I think the interview was unsuccessful. And RAMS are currently widening their search for doctors by advertising in the UK. I have a house up in Oxley Parade, which will be vacant shortly, and it's got a 4-bedroom house. But I'm going to talk to Lynn Harris, who runs the hospital here, and she's got a family coming beginning of February, so I've told her at this stage that she can have that. There's a family of 4, and we probably will give them a 12-month lease, and if the doctor turns up in the meantime, we'll have to work around that. But we sort of based our appraisal on the fact that the doctors probably have families if they're going to live in Warren, and they probably need at least a 3 or 4-bedroom house and a couple of garages. So it's not just, if you want people to stay here, they'll have to have family accommodation, I believe. I think Ben Harris says there's probably 9 nurses that are coming in the next few months to Warren, so it's 9 places off, but the local health district's supplying these 3 units that Rod's talking about, and they spoke to me here a month or 2 ago, but there's no sign of them, and there's no indication of when they're going to turn up. But anyway, we've got these, but sorry, most of these families come from overseas. So I think the family of 4 are coming from the Philippines, and just also, if I may add, that there is a family here that he manages a GDT facility which recycles tyres, as you know. His wife is a registered doctor in Bangladesh, and we're trying to help her to get qualified here. One of the impediments is that there's a long waiting list for people to do the exams to qualify in up to 2 years, I believe. And so we're asking Mark Carlton to assist if he can to give us some priorities on getting those exams available to people like her, because they've been here 5 years, well established, play cricket from Arsagai, have friends in Dover that come and visit, so they're an ideal family if if we can get them qualified, I suppose. So I think they're the opportunities that people have some sort of an association with other people in the area. They're more likely to settle down here and stay. So that's our goal at the moment. Oh, the other thing is Rams and Black have formed a committee to help oversee the medical practice in Warren. So while we won't have a final say, we're going to be part of the system to oversee the management. That's all I can say, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it will be a couple of minutes. Councillor Whiteley.
Thank you, gentlemen. The perennial problem between the GP supplier, whether it be Rams or whether it be private and Western Health, is that combination of the work processes between the two? Is that functioning better?
I think it'd need 100-page report to answer that question, to be honest, because the whole system's become more and more complicated, and because of legalities, and I'm not throwing rocks at anyone and saying this, to get an incoming GP ticked off to be a practitioner at the MPHS is not easy. And the argument is, and you can't argue with it, if you make it easy, you're going to end up with quacks and dams, those that can't get work anywhere else. So they do have to set that benchmark high, but believe you me, there's a lot of red tape there. Now, whether that could be reduced, I'm not the right person to answer.
But fair to comment, that's been the historical problem that we've had for 25 years.
It's got a lot worse, that's the thing, a lot worse. And we're doing what we can as a organisation to work with it, but it's just not easy.
Can I add there? The fact is, at the moment, that the hospital doesn't know who's working at the primary health care, the Rams facility, and the people at Rams don't know who's at the hospital either. So there's a big gap in communication. It's ridiculous.
And this is where we feel that if we can get some of these communication channels opened up and getting the MPHS talking to the local community about their problems in relation to accommodation, in relation to other issues, we may be of some assistance. Initially, when we started our work committee, there seemed to be that resentment that we were going to be this group there throwing rocks at them, and that was never our intention. Now, we're going to disagree sometimes, but our intention is to try and facilitate communication and cooperation so we can move forward, because this whole health system, it's that complex. Nobody can stand up and say, I can fix it by doing this. There's 1,000 different reasons, and you've just got to try and work through it.
One last question to Mr. Mayor is, when we look at councils and health systems further west, whether it be Wilcannia, Broken Hill, Burke, Trewarrn, or is there any difference is there any federal government or money subsidies that they're getting that we're not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So OCA or Rams that run some of the organisations further west have been subsidised by the feds?
At
a higher rate than we are now.
Can
I suggest that's a political argument that we're
Well, that's one we have pursued, and we're continuing to pursue, but there is a difference, and the greater the need is, the greater the support. But the further you go west into the really remote country, the level of health just drops and drops and drops. Doesn't matter how much money they throw at it, it's still low. It's lower here in the city. I think there's a 9 years average age difference between people that live in the city and people that live out here. That's a pretty big difference. And a lot of that sure you can attribute the lifestyle, but some of it is also the health facilities aren't the same as they are in the city.
Can I add something too? I've only recently become aware of these numbers, but commercially the issue is that the doctor in Bondi Junction can make more than twice as much a day as the guy in Warren. So they can afford to pay twice as much. It's a competitive market, so obviously it's difficult to attract people out here if they're getting paid less. And that's a real difficulty. We've asked Mark Carlton when he was here for the annual general a few weeks ago about whether there could be an increase in the loading for our designated areas. And he said they were considering it, but he wasn't over enthusiastic, I don't think, but certainly the absolute fact is that doctors like money. And if you go and work in Wellington, as a locum at the moment, you can get $4,000 a day. So,
This is where, in a collective way, our community's really got to work together. We've got to do the accommodation bit, we've got to promote the town, and I know the show is working on that, have been working on it for a long time, but if we're going to get professionals, not only doctors, but people to serve as counsel, ambos, police, school teachers, we really need to promote ourselves. So they're all issues. The other issue is the spoken about article in the paper. We've got to make them welcome. We've got to do more than we're doing when they get here, so they feel like they are part of the community. And the little things that they're all there, we've got to do.
Councillor Jackson, you had a question?
Just a question. So as a committee, do you see yourselves as being, I guess, the conduit for all these different disparate groups, RAMS, health, perhaps Chamber of Commerce, where you actually make, do you see yourselves as being sort of a permanent part of the landscape to keep all these groups connected and informed, because none of those groups, or particularly health, could take those roles themselves? Is that stuff as a permanent kind of thing?
Well, we've set it up professionally, we're constituted, we've got our own bank account, every box we need to tick to say we're going to be here for the long run has been ticked. What we're going to start working on, you know, for myself and Tony, we're going to start looking at succession planning. Now, we've done that with community homes, and we've got to do it with the work committee. We need younger people coming forward so that the group continues. It is an important part of what's going on here. We've got to keep it going. Yeah.
Through you, Ms. Mayor, to continue on that point of what Councillor Jackson said, the group that is being formed with RAMS, it could be a private time to take to other communities, and we sort of looked at it like being a Rotary or a CWA to have that voice. Now, the government won't sort of listen to you unless you have a lot of people behind you with the same agenda, and to try and get them to listen and to hopefully get some change. And also, I was just going to ask, or let you know, that these three, you know, about the MPHS and the establishment of the three for the nurses, according to our health and development person sitting over there, they haven't put DA in for that.
they haven't.
No, so I just think we should maybe be talking to him. It's that, behind the eight ball.
Did I actually need to put an AA in?
So.
Well, there is a variation there between New South Wales state government. I know when the Kalara House was built, the DA did go in, but basically it was at that stage more a goodwill thing. They legally didn't have to put it in.
I think to people with more expertise than I would, we can investigate that for sure and certainly to find out some details about that. We'll get the legalities in and understand what the obligations are on behalf of New South Wales Health. Yeah. I think the point I would go back to was your first one, Rod, in terms of low-hanging fruit, in terms of just ability to let our community know what's going on, in terms of services being provided by both the NPS and Jung. It would be, I think we can get it with the imprimatur council laws, I think we can certainly get it on our website. The thing we need to do is have that information come to us in a timely manner, and it needs to be accurate. There's nothing worse than it being too late or inaccurate. And so, my question probably is, who would be the person who can do that and supply?
Can I throw another question back then? Can you nominate a person in your organisation that could take responsibility for ringing the appropriate people to glean the information? I know the context. I thought if somebody in council was able to have that responsibility, so they would, at a certain day each week, ring for all the information, is that possible?
I think the obligation is on the health service to supply us the information. It's not, you know, to be frank, it's not a council responsibility.
I'm quite confident, RAMS will provide the information.
So they had one person.
It's not just Warren Local Health Service, it's actually RAMS and their auxiliary health services as well.
RAMS need to be one point of contact with their broader network. Contact Jody weekly, whatever it is, with their information. The NPS, same story. They need to have some person who knows what services are there. Quite frankly, it's not council's responsibility to chase it. They're putting it on our website. It's not a.
Well, I think RAMS is going to be good to work with because of the bureaucracy we're talking about. I think the multi-purpose health service is still going to be up for it. And I'm not throwing rocks at them, just the way it is. But we're certainly working on it.
Tony, did you get the two? Do you have in mind just two people?
I had contact with RAMS and Baptist or Orange or whatever. But I don't know who the right person in the MPHS is because they seem to have multi-layers of people too that are not connected very well.
Could I'm going to put back in your court. Right? If you can get the two representatives from each organisation, I'm sure we'll be happy to put it on our website, but we just need it to be accurate and timely.
Well,
if we have a contact person.
The same with the Warren Weekly, they will require information.
Councillor Jackson, you have a question?
Yeah, just in relation to the NPS, I don't know whether this is helpful or not, but one of the issues they have is everything needs to be couched in the right language. It's their sort of policies that they have. And I found in my professional experience, working with the media person who's based in Orange. So getting them on board, because one issue they have is how things are communicated, and they're very particular about that. And I've found when I've wanted to get information out, I've formed a relationship with a media person of some trust, and he's provided certain, their communication style guidelines. And if they, at that level, say they're happy to help, it means that the MPS management team locally know that they can upload information or they can delegate someone in their organisation to do it if they have the rubber stamp and they know the right form. So perhaps they could create an internal process that then feeds in. So you've got, say, a media representative from health who will send through that information in their format or delegate one of their people, because they're all very busy over there locally at the health. And the other person is they do have individuals there who possibly are able to get information out to the community as well, but they need to be authorised by the hierarchy of NPS.
I find it scary because they don't communicate with each other very well.
Particularly during COVID, that seems to have actually broken some.
On a positive note, Mr Mayor, part of the COVID grant application, our grants we received, we were actually setting up some ability to actually provide event and other information, both by big trailer mounted things and display boards, professional display boards that we're going to go out in front of this building here. Those types of things, wouldn't it be great to be able to say that there's some podiatry a day at the Warren self-service, but it's not up to us to chase. No. People have to tell us.
Yes, absolutely.
And bang, it's on our screens,
Yes,
on our website, on our Facebook, as well as their own Facebook.
yes.
We all agree with
I had more confidence in you guys than I did in the health department. You guys responsibility.
Not our game.
Well, it's a service, you know.
Yeah, well, it is, but, you know, quite frankly, that's an application of responsibility from health.
Well, the big problem is if council took the role on of supplying the information, they get anything wrong.
Exactly.
He's going to get the kick in the butt.
Exactly.
That's all right. Just put the heading in.
Comment through you, Mr. Mayor. I just think if the public sees that we're all working together, like council, us, the whole works, I think it's a good work, but we're really trying to do something about our health and primary health is life.
Exactly. I believe council is right behind the Warren Health Action Committee, and that's evidenced by Councillor Bruce being on that committee.
Well, in the years I've been in organisations, this council's been excellent. Especially through the years with community homes, on a couple of occasions, there was units built, there was loans provided through council, which gave us the opportunity to pay it off over a period of years. It was always paid off, but without that sort of support, we wouldn't have 14 units around there.
I would also say, Mr. Mayor, to be mindful with, I'm going at an angle with economic development, and this, you, Owen, but to keep that in mind, if you don't have a good health system, you can have all the ideas and plans for to move forward economically, but you've got to have a sound health system with people and industries. It's,
absolutely, that's the core of what we're trying to do. Really. We're all trying to do a sustainable community that does have a viable health support network. It's essential.
Essential is a word I'm thinking of too. They're essential services, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Any further comments, questions to the Warren Health Action Committee? No. Contract in every form. Gary will look after everything. We can certainly get that information on our website, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just got to work empty.
Now, I'd like you to start in the morning too, which should be imminent. We're still making morning. Wait and have some morning.
Sit down and relax and watch us work hard.
Thank you. Council will resume our ordinary meeting and move on to item 2, the report of the General Manager. Item 2 being the delegation authority to the Mayor. Someone having to move the recommendation in relation to the delegation authority to the Mayor. Councillor McCloskey, Councillor Brewer, Councillor McCloskey. Anything to add? Nothing. It's all there in front. This is very much standard procedure and complies with the Office of Local Government's guidelines on delegation of authority. Any further comments, questions before we put that? Being the case, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 3, the General Manager's report. That being the delegation authority to the Deputy Mayor Again, someone to move that. Councillor Bruce, seconded Councillor Brewer. Councillor Bruce. Nothing further. Move the recommendation, Councillor Bruce.
Yes.
Any further comments, questions in relation to item 3? If nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4, delegation authority to the general manager. Again, the recommendations there in front. Moved by Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Walker.
I'm happy to move it, and the GM gets a lot of power. If you need it.
Particularly noting Councillor Walker, the delegation authority for $250,000 worth of expenditure if necessary. Any further on item 4, the delegation authority to the general manager? Comments, questions? In the case, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Have we got some more in tea, have we? You happy? We're happy to adjourn the meeting at this time. Thank you, Sharon, for begin the recording. Council will reopen the meeting. We're moving on to item 5 of the report to the general manager. That's being the meeting dates, times and order of business for our monthly council meeting. The recommendations are in front of us. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor McCloskey, Councillor Jackson, Councillor McCloskey.
No.
So everyone aware of that. We'll have our normal meetings, but the November and December meetings are combined so that they happen at the beginning of December, as per what's been occurring for a number of years now. And sorry, the other question that, the comment that the general manager has made is that our meetings are all held in Warren. In previous years, in previous terms of council, we have moved around a little bit, but we have undertaken community consultation meetings in Nevertire, and they will continue to happen in terms of and Collide as on an as-needs basis with more specific comments regarding town improvement, etc. in those areas. Being nothing further on item 5, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6, affirmation of office. What do we need to record that? Is that?
Yeah, just move it. It's all been done. Yeah, I know, but that's just that it was done.
The recommendation for item 6, that the oath or affirmation of office, councillors will be fully aware that it has occurred for every councillor. We just need to record that information be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Kinsey, seconded Councillor Bruce. Councillor Kinsey.
No, just move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding that? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the item 7 of the General Manager report regarding the casual vacancies that may be filled on a count-back basis 18 months after the last local government election. And the recommendation there is that council adopt that policy that has, or that recommendation, that the casual vacancy occurring in that first 18 months after an election be filled by the next candidate who missed out on election. That of course will not occur in C Ward because there was no election. So we would have to go to a by-election in C Ward if there was a vacancy in C Ward within the next 18 months. Someone happy to move that recommendation, or does someone happy to move the discussion?
Maybe move it.
You're going to move that, Councillor Kinsey, seconded Councillor Brewer. Councillor Kinsey.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Mr. Mayor. Hope we never use it, but if it's there, we can.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll defer to DA. What's the rough cost of running a by-election? It's reasonable.
Through Mr. Mayor, the cost between a by-election and a full by-election is not much different.
Yes, that's
What's the cost of the ballot papers? Because, well, with the last election, we only had the one polling place, still have the same polling place. Still got to run 3 polls, so it's really no difference whatsoever. between a sort of crosswise to
Yeah. That's a very good reason for adopting this policy.
I think so.
I think so. Thank you, the Finance Administration. Anything further on, the councillor vacancy, recommendation, item 7 of the General Manager's report? That being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 8, the council organisational structure. That's there, and then there was another email sent with some names pertaining to positions. Someone happy just to move the recommendation that the council adopt the organisational structure as it detailed within the report. Councillor Jackson's moved that. Councillor White seconded it. Councillor Jackson. No further comment. I think it just gives you a good understanding of how the organisation sits and how it works. Nothing further, excuse me, on the organisational structure, item 8. With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 9 of the General Manager's report, the outstanding reviews checklist. What is usual that the asterisk items are removed from that outstanding reports checklist, and there are a couple of those on the report, particularly LED sports, Colorado. Someone happy to move the outstanding reports checklist? Councillor Kinsey, second Councillor White. Councillor Kinsey.
Yeah, we'd like to ask questions about this.
Certainly may, seeking information. Councillor Kinsey, yes.
Okay, the never time, like, how long has that been going on for the inquiry or whatever we're doing?
Black Spot Telecommunications.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing issue, as you'll be fully aware,
It's
Councillor.
been going on for quite some time, but it happened years ago.
Yeah.
Don't seem to get too far.
It's a struggle. We raised the issue, particularly with our federal member again and again and again, and Councillor Certegy, to her credit, has been very much on that bandwagon. We hope for improvements in particularly telephone, but that certainly hasn't been forthcoming. You'll be aware that Field Solution Group have indicated they want to purchase some land and build a tower, but that's for broadband network, so that should improve the ability in terms, for data. Yeah, for data. So that should improve that over time, but in terms of telephone connectivity, we're still struggling with we've made some inquiries at a fairly high level at Telstra and still not really getting much response from that dialogue with James Hill.
Monthly emails.
Monthly is getting? He's getting monthly emails from us. Yeah. Councillor White.
Yeah, I realise the Nevertire situation, I understand that fairly well, but I don't think we need to limit ourselves to Nevertire. And over the last few months, we've had some tragic events that have happened on the eastern side of town that have continued. We were very lucky. We had one death, and we were very lucky that we didn't have two, not because of mobile service, but we were one person survived an event because the phone did accidentally work while he was on the ground. The other one, the person that's no longer with us anymore, couldn't contact help. And then we extend to the northwestern side of our shire with our RFS and our response to 000. Basically, from where I live on Gunning-Bar Creek, almost to Minion, there's no mobile service. And extending to the west to our boundary, to the Bogan River, and all the way 3 parts away to Trenton. I don't know how we fix this, but it's got to be fixed. We asked
Mark Colton to set up his office at Mullumbimby, might be a good idea. It's got to the stage now, from the business point of view, from health and safety point of view, from a response for emergency service point of view, in this day and age, it's unacceptable.
Agree entirely. I don't think you get any dissenters in this room or within this local government area. Councillor Whiteley, but yes, we need to continue pursuing it at the highest level and continue to speak with Mr. Toole from Telstra this time, not with Deputy Premier. Look, take it on notice that there's certainly something that's top of the agenda. Regional councils, activity with our local member and other federal members. We continue to raise it. I think when next Mark Colton's in the vicinity, I don't know whether you had the chance, Councillor Whiteley, to speak with him when he was here in the last couple of months for the National Party meetings, but I'm sure those in attendance would have been raising that very same matter. Sorry, Councillor McCloskey.
Just a couple of questions, if I would, please.
Certainly.
Location of Phillipston CBD. Location?
The location between the meat house and the pharmacy, for want of a better term, along Dubbo Street. That vacant block there. Council has been purchased. It's all ready to go. Yep.
Also, the sale of land, lot 38, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64 in the subdivision.
There.
Deacon Drive?
Sorry?
What's the story there?
Not exactly sure of the total story, but a party came to council offering significantly less than what the blocks have been listed at, even within this brief period. Council, someone wanted to amalgamate, or otherwise, I don't know whether they want to amalgamate them or not. Council declined the offer in terms of pricing, but we're certainly very much willing to negotiate if that party came back to us, and I'd have to defer to the Bank of Finance Administration. If there's no commercial in confidence problems, just
Through to me, and I actually was speaking to the respective purchaser and sent them a letter and get as to the council's resolution from December. And I haven't heard anything back at this point in time, but the indication was that they wanted to look at building self-contained type units, maybe a couple of 3-bedroom houses and things like that. But that was indicated in their letter of offer.
Further on in the report, in the plan replacement program, the replacement of an excavator, JCB, is that the mini excavator for the water and sewage crew?
Yes.
How long's that?
4 or 5 million hours.
How many hours on it?
I'm not, I don't know.
Sufficient to warrant replacement, but also trying to get some good resurveying.
And another question is, on the Canangle Road, 6.2 kilometres of work proposed. There's a question mark with regard to Canangle Shire. Where's that located?
From Fuller Green Road onward.
Well, the last leak from the Fuller Green to the boundary, or Fuller Green back through the creek, back this way, back south.
Back to south, going south.
Attempting to try to get
past horses there.
Yeah.
It was from that grant that was given fixing local roads, or fixing country roads between Warren and Canamble. That money's still floating around that we had to try and find 25% of, but apparently Rossi is the, so it's still up and down as to where it's up to.
Councillor McCloskey.
Again, sorry.
Yes.
Do we still, or does council still have access to the 2 gravel pit?
Yes.
We do? Yes. We just noticed some works in Railway Parade where we're getting some material from the Bogan Shire for that work.
We're using 2 can pits for when it's underneath seal.
Sorry?
We're using 2 can gravel pits when it's underneath seal.
when it's underneath soil, so opposed to being unsealed, they're not going to use it. Any particular reason?
It's gone very, very clay. It uses a beautiful 100 CBR material with 2% lime.
So I can't hear you.
It produces a beautiful 100 CBR material with 2% lime.
This is the 2-hand gravel. Yes, I understand that. So the section of road that you're doing on with this here and the amount of material, what length?
It's building up the road too with some just normal, I'll call it slightly rubbishy material. And approximately 250 metres, maybe 300 metres past the sampling point. From Birmingham, MLB concrete past the sampling point. Not quite to the sampling point. With maybe a culvert required in the middle of it.
Councillor Crossley. Councillor White, do you have a question?
Question, I'm sorry, I'm not aware. The common road from the highway intersection at the truck stop through to the Canamble Road turn-off, where the man lives, is that classified as regional road or as the Canamble Road is, or is it a?
Yes, it's
direct?
It's regional road 333.
No, it's
That road 202.
No, 202. 202. We
Road.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry?
Martha Guy Road.
Martha Guy Road.
Martha Guy Road is the name of the.
Regional Road 202.
Yep.
On both regional roads.
Yeah, so, yes, 202, yeah, that's right, so 202 is off from, and I'll stand corrected, but from the highway, essentially off the highway, all the way to Homburn.
Boundary, yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
You can't, if you turn right onto it's called the Warren Road. So
Yeah.
7515 is again a regional road. They do have two different numbers, but they are both regional roads.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
I just had a question in relation to the proposed sale of 2 lots of Crown Reserve, or designated Crown Reserve. So first question is, does council get the proceeds of the sale of that Crown land? And second of all, I noticed it may be delayed due to an Aboriginal lands claim. Is that a litigation at this stage? And if so, is it against us or is it against the purchaser? And what are the ramifications should they be successful or unsuccessful?
So it's the resolution relates to the sale of a piece of property that Warren Shire Council owns to the adjacent landowner, and the licence of a Crown Reserve adjacent to everything, the land purchase and for access. So no, there's no Aboriginal Land Council claim on the private property that they're selling. There has been an Aboriginal Land Council claim on the Crown Reserve, which is being managed at the moment.
So is that being managed by the purchaser through their process, or we are doing that in order to?
Council officers are attempting to manage that to negate the Aboriginal lands claim.
And is that potentially going to be an issue for the community, members of the community, or
an issue for what we wanted to do? Yes.
So if the claim, the Aboriginal lands claim is negated, is that going to create, an issue for us with the community?
There's 50 to 100 Aboriginal land claims put in every day, we're just one of them.
Councillor Whiteley and Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Whiteley.
This is related, but not really. Land subdivision and lines on maps were done in the 1880s, with the technology, with quick maps and such now, there's a lot of lines on maps and fences and boundaries that are not where they should be. Is that a problem for Warren Shire with land usage and, so where their roads are in the ongoing, are our assets where they should be?
Like every council in the state, there are those types of problems. The Roads Act does allow use of properties where they may have been used, and exactly that, the road slightly off into someone else's property. It's really road in use. However, you try to fix up those problems if required as they're coming on. Costs a lot of money and time too. So.
Councillor Kinsey.
Proposed acquisition notice, Gunning Bar Street, Nevertime. What's all that about?
I'll let the Manager of Health and Development Services has been attempting to manage that on behalf of the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services, not Raymond, but Riley.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's a section of road that is Crown land that isn't actually gazetted as road, so that's just trying to rectify that Crown land reserve back into road.
So we're not going to shut the road, we just want to get ownership so we can deal with it. Is that what you're doing?
We've got to get the Crown land gazetted as road. It's currently developed as road and currently used as road. Yeah.
No, I'm going to get this clear. We're trying to buy it or get acquisition to it so that we can actually develop the road and keep it as it is.
It's one of the matters that Councillor Whiteley just mentioned.
We're in mud, lovely.
Sorry, Councillor, what was your license to land? What was your, did you say you requesting more information than that? So, if you go back through the council business papers, there's a long, and perhaps the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services can probably bring you up to speed when he returns to work, but there's a progression of backward steps to try and rectify oversights that have occurred during naming of lots and gazetting of lots.
The end goal to keep the road open.
Yes. And the result is we want it to stay as it is.
So, look, one minute to clarify. There are 5 blocks of land that are currently landlocked via some Crown land that has been made into hopefully a part of it a road, part of it Aboriginal Land Council is taking ownership of it. It used to be the school. So that's sorted. We're hoping it's sorted because it's a fairly complicated matter. This is ongoing times 2 at it.
Yeah. Councillor Walker.
Things there will get off roads. I'm just wondering if the motions for the local government conference have to be
30th of January.
If you want to have.
They're in draft form that the Mayor and I are going to finalise within the next week or so.
So if you have one with that, if you need to come to see, no?
Too late. That was the resolution. You actually had to come with that, and there's 8. We've got 8.
Oh, okay.
And they're all the ones that you expect. Think of that resolution. And Mayor and I are going to finalise them in the next week or so.
They'll be put out for us to look at.
Only if you want to dot the i's and cross the t's. And to reduce the size of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is, as you'll be aware, Councillor Walker, the amount of state, there are 100 and whatever number of 128 councils. Our motions are a drop in the ocean, but nonetheless we put them in, and often they're all amalgamated into one single motion with a whole lot of comments from other councils when it goes to local government New South Wales conference. So yes, we will endeavour to make it ours when it's appropriate, but we lead motion, we do get to speak as in the one meeting that you hear via Zoom. But you know how quickly they go through the motions, but look, they're worthwhile, and as per our council resolution, we'll get those tidied up and submitted on time so that they become part of the business practice of the local government satellite council. Councillor Whiteley, do you have another question?
No, I just, on behalf of the new council, I want to thank you and the GM for their tolerance in some of these questions, because we weren't up on some of these issues. That's fine. It's not actually on the GM's report, but I would like your indulgence to comment on one of the committees, the external committees that have been active in the last month or so, mainly with the flood.
Can I just put it up there, Councillor Whiteley, for a second? In the next item in the General Manager's report, like item 10, which is to do with committee and delegates meetings, I think we can actually talk to it in item 10. That's appropriate. That is appropriate. Yep. Councillor Walker.
I was just wondering if there was any, the Lions Park with the toilet that keeps popping up. Have you heard from that organisation?
Yes, I have, Mr. Mayor, verbally both through the president, I believe the secretary. I just had to make a secondary letter to the Lions Club confirming that $16,000 was going to be a contribution to the almost $145,000 toilet facility. They needed that to attempt to try to obtain further funds to actually help with their contribution, but I'm expecting a letter to come in pretty soon, well and truly confirming the $16,000 contribution from the Warren Lions Club. And I've actually sufficiently confident that the infrastructure project manager is
and the CBD one at the same time?
Yes, two separate quotations.
Yeah, I know the two separate, but yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Anything further on item 10, the outstanding report checklist from the General Manager? If nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The new councillors, in recognition of Warren being a healthy town and big awareness of a healthy lifestyle, council will be standing during item 10 of the General Manager's report.
Sure, this is not the quick enough report.
This is not to speed the report along. There is no ulterior motive. Sometimes we've been able to stand for two items. Mr. General Manager.
Short ones, hopefully.
Councillor McCloskey, no, they're usually very long.
Don't tell the debate.
Item 10 of the General Manager's report, that's been the committee and delegates meetings, just noting those, so I'm happy to move that those meetings be noted. Councillor McCloskey, Councillor Brewer, Councillor McCloskey, nothing. Councillor Whiteley, I think, alluded to a comment that he wished to make regarding to one of those committee meetings. Councillor Whiteley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're all aware that we had a flood event recently, and this, in my experience, is the first one where the telemetry involved with Macquarie Valley and Burrendong Dam and all the way down here has been active. 90% of that works really well, but I think personally this was the best managed as far as the flood mitigation zone committee, and Sri, the state water boss, and his staff have certainly used the telemetry, used their control of the river. Could have been a lot worse than it was. I just personally, and I think we as a group should congratulate that committee and the state water management on the way that they this event. It might not be over yet, but the management of the event was, I've been here since 1990 and seen all situations since then. This event was managed, in my opinion, 100% better than others, and obviously with the help of the committee, the people on the committee, state water staff, and the telemetry of the river, which I think is the management of the flood mitigation zone was, for someone that lives at this end of the valley, was excellent.
To that end, with the indulgence of the mover, Councillor McCloskey and Councillor Brewer, would you be happy to council forward a letter to State Water New South Wales, just thanking them for their work in the management of the 2021 flood? You happy to move a second point there?
Management of the Macquarie River flood flow.
Yeah, management of the, yeah, can go to on the management, Jody, of the Macquarie.
And the, Mr. Mayor, the management of the flood mitigation zone environmental thing.
Okay, but just those points, yeah, it's all the same. We're doing it. We'll tidy it up. Yeah. We get, thank you, Councillor White. We get the intent of what you're trying to say. We just need to tidy it up. Yeah, that's tidy that up. Yeah. So moving second, happy with that. Thank you. Any further comments on item 10?
Mayor?
Sorry, Councillor Kinsey.
The alleged flood that was coming down the Warren actually caused a bit of concern for me on my farm. Because I had an insurance company say to me, because I'm going to get flooded, where I am, probably like 15 metres higher than here, they wouldn't allow me to insure a brand new header that was supposed to come into my place that day. So, anyhow, I got around that somehow, but what it did do, it caused a minor panic in Sydney of this bloody insurance conglomerate. So I wonder whether the word flood should be used, quite frankly, because it really wasn't a flood.
Depends where you were, Councillor Kinsey. I think some would say it was a flood.
Yeah, down there it was. Yeah.
Councillor Walker on your right.
Mr. Mayor, what happened was, because my postcode is whatever it is,
yes,
it was associated with this flood here.
Yes.
It wasn't factual for it, right?
Just have to manage that problem.
Well, actually, I'm not being warranted to have to say.
Warren gets it that we've got already.
Yeah. Understanding exactly what you're saying, Councillor Kinsey, it's just as soon as you put a number or categorise something, it just throws everything in one bucket, doesn't it?
So I'd like to see the word flood taken out, but it doesn't worry if you don't.
We sort of
What's the flood?
well, the flood mitigation zone is just that.
Yeah, but it was actual, the Macquarie River flood flows. Was it actual flood? I don't know.
Come home and let me see.
Yeah, fair enough.
We'll leave that debate for a second. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I feel for Councillor Kinsey that the Macquarie Valley extends from Collo to Tottenham, but there's a few processes in when that go on with flood events, and some are political and some are not. Where there's certain organisations, a three-letter word starting with S, that are involved. There's other things that hit the media and happen, and unfortunately, Councillor Kinsey might have been collateral damage, but there are certain political and media processes that some quasi-state governments use, which are seriously annoying, like to see themselves perched up on our entrance to Warren sign for 3.5 or 4 hours, which annoy the hell out of me. But I think as a council, we should be proactive in leading some of this media and directing the power plays between some state government departments that just seem to be wanting to be in front of the TV cameras all the time. Thank you.
Point taken, Councillor Whiteley, and and conveyed during that last event through our General Manager to the Local Emergency Management Committee and to those authorities to try and steer them in a better direction, for want of a better term. So that is, we, as a council, acutely aware of what actually occurs in some of those situations, and endeavour to turn the ship in the right direction whenever we can. Any further on item 10, the report to the committee and delegates? And nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour, against, carried. Right, you can see it. Is that satisfactory for you, Councillor McCloskey?
Yes.
Moving on to the works progress report, infrastructure projects under the guidance of the General Manager. That's item 11. Someone having to move the recommendation, the information received and noted. Councillor Brewer moved. Secondly, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Brewer.
I've got a question, to find out where it is, about the Centre Arena toilet upgrade, which is in there somewhere, I found it yesterday. But it says in,
Not quite finished.
no, but I've just looked at the budget, and look, I actually went to the drive yesterday to check it out, but there's a septic tank there ready to go. The budget worries me though, because the budget has a 45k tag on it and 40,000 was already spent. So I suspect, I'm hoping, that the work's paid for and yet to be completed. It just says in here somewhere or other that it's, what is the term used? It's practically complete on page 82.
So most work's complete, I think. In fact, actually this week it's actually getting finished though, I think, from the comment from the infrastructure project manager and his foreman. But overall, all the sewage and septic things have been put together to fix up the whole system. So any savings here are going to other parts that are matrix, because of the real true upgrade of the facility was all the stuff behind it. The electrical was needed to be redone. All the sewage and septic stuff needed to be redone. I think what's sitting at the back there is actually not a septic tank system, but a sewer pump station. That another project a long time ago paid for, but didn't require it, and it's going to be set up in the middle. Help me a little bit, please, if I may.
So the old septic system behind the toilet block there in the Centre Arena is not working well, so it'll be abandoned, and then that pumping station will be installed, pump it all over to the main receivable area over near the camp, the camping area.
And so we're happy that it's still under budget, even though that's a serious deviation from the original plan, which was to just replumb that into a, because it was uphill, it was a terrible setup, it was uphill to the sewage and all this sort of thing. It used to flood very easily in there, so it was pretty ordinary. But so we're confident that we're still under budget for that, because the budget's just about tuned for the original scope, and this sounds like a variation to that original scope to pump it across the outside.
Which you need, on page 81, you need to have a look at so far. The new installed new septic receivable tank and main beams is 45,000 left. There's $100,000 left to update, renovate toilet block in the Centre Arena. It's actually instead of 160,000, we spent 61,000 for what you're talking about.
Yep.
So there's a reasonable bit of coin left, 100,000.
Well, okay.
That's on page 81. For example, the little bit of over expenditure, so everyone needs to look at page 81. The 90,000 for the all concrete and AC floors and all pavilions, the 95,732 includes commitments that are kind of accidentally been doubled up. It's just over the 90,000 expenditure. But wins and losses, particularly relating to electrical and septic.
In relation to Councillor Brewer, given that there's pluses and minuses in different budgeted areas here, is there not just a bottom line budget that at the end of the day is what you're...
That's correct, yeah, we're trying our hardest to try to stay
individualised. It's like one goes over, one goes under, they marry up.
But where possible, trying to stay within those sub-budgets. You know, other areas have a very large budget and that's just to the bottom line, but we're trying to stay within that budget too.
Councillor McCloskey, we've tried over time to get some real detail into the business paper, so you can actually, as Councillor Brewer was able to look at more individual projects. So that this, you found it, as councillors disconcerting, did you see these bottom line budget numbers at times? And if you knew a bit of detail about each one,
yeah, but what I'm saying is, yeah, that at the end of the day, you've got a bottom line budget, because you've got half a dozen areas within that total scope of works.
Yes.
You've got a dollar figure down here to finish with. Yes. And a dollar figure down here that you've actually spent, as opposed to, yeah.
Yep.
Like, for example, the $46,673, that's completely managed by the Jockey Club, and they're actually paying for that over expenditure, which they're purposely using their money to go over.
Again, with regard to work playground, it's got the splash park down adjacent to the pool, says it's completed. Is there no provision for any shade structures down there?
As part of an overall other budget elsewhere.
Yeah, so there will be some shade structures go in there eventually when they tar over.
Within budget, look at the Carter Oval and the development that surrounds on the bottom of page 77. Plus a few trees.
The intention was, Councillor McCloskey, to just work our way through all the major infrastructure.
Sorry?
Our intention there was to work through all the major infrastructure things, the
Yep.
lights, and get the ovens developed, etc. Get everything done, and then, yes, work out what exactly.
Yeah, no, just to let some comments pass to you about the lack of shade given down. You go down there at this time of the day, there's a couple of trees there.
Yes, there are.
But there are benches and whatnot, that they've got, yeah, no shade whatsoever on.
Time again, Councillor McCloskey, to fix that problem. If you might relay that to those concerned, it's just a matter of getting through it. Sorry, Councillor Walker.
Yes, brilliant, Mr Mayor. The fencing, the perimeter fencing, what's the status of that? I've just read they're waiting on more quotes, or what is that?
Well, we've got quotes ready to roll for the supply and delivery of the fencing. It's the installation that has been delayed because some regional and local ones that wanted to do both at the same time. Just like for clarification of to be within budget or within budgeted overall scheme. So far, the quotes have not been as cheap as we wanted them to be.
And in terms of installation, we of course want it done properly, which is sometimes not being quite the case. So just to hold off, what we're getting, then we'll go forward from there.
So you know that, hoping it's a local?
Only within reason, Mr Mayor. If we've got a budget of 100,000 and the local's 170, no.
Yeah. Councillor Whiteley, then Councillor Brewer.
Just a question on that, is the hardware purchase,
No, not yet.
the inflation rate of fencing materials probably 10% a week at the moment. It is double in this calendar year.
certainly got quotes ready to accept for the material.
I would respectfully check your quotes because the steel wire is just on.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Whiteley. Someone else had a question, Councillor?
Yep, I got it. In the grant section, is for the general manager. Can you clarify in the comment section, the status of some of those grants? Some are grant applications successful, some are waiting on successful notification, and some are waiting successful notification, no announcement to date. Does that mean we believe they've been successful, but we haven't been told about it? Or does it mean that we're just waiting? What does it all mean?
So, where it says waiting on successful notification, you'll probably find it's gone past the two ones you're looking at are on top of page 88, which is Regional Tourism Activation Grant. That successful notification should have happened long ago. That was probably two of the projects that are tied. Tourism used to be in the forte. The Deputy Premier, the previous Deputy Premier, had a fair amount to do with a lot of those grants, and a lot of the grant notifications slowed down because of certain commissions that the ICAC matters that were going on. So there were a whole heap of grant applications or grant notifications that weren't advised until after what came out of the ICAC. Exactly as per, like for example, the Regional Arts Fund grant project, we've been unsuccessful, that will then disappear from the next report. Other times you're just waiting on notification.
But we think we've got it.
No.
No. It's misleading. Waiting successful notification.
I understand. It's just, we've accidentally used just one extra word with the successful notification, just waiting on notification.
Right.
Councillor Whiteley.
With respect to some of those, and with respect to some of the comments that the GM's just made ICAC, is there any difference in the applications and business plans that have changed since the directions of the ICAC on some of the highly publicised ones?
No, all of them expected, and we did quality grant applications with project planning and justification. It's just that the New South Wales government's just got very, making sure that whoever's making the decisions are actually dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Those two, for example, on top of page 88, both those organisations, we helped both of them. One was WOW Centre, River Smart. The other one was the Barama Group. They put in as good a quality professional applications as you can with our information behind them as well. Have to wait until these special organisations within those types of areas make the decision. The last one is an interesting one. Last one on page 89, Mr. Mayor, is a very complicated one, as with Australian National University as a partner. We're doing things in kind, which is really management staff costs. And Amy and you are putting a fair amount of money as kind of in kind as well. But it's a complicated application in an attempt to try to determine what actually happened for the November 2021 floods, its effects, and whether it can be negated. with a fair amount of climate change thrown in.
Thank you for that, General Manager. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to ask about the Pathway Sculptures art. It says, waiting on further information from Warren and District Arts Council. Just wondering what that partnership with them is in relation to this particular project.
They were the one who initially made the progress of don't forget that was, and it's funded by that economic development drought stimulus package, and there were between 3 and 5 kind of local artists that were organised to try to do some sculptures. I signed an order yesterday for 2 out of those extra 3 or 4. So on top of this, two further ones have now been engaged. Very much relating to drought, the psychology of drought, and improvement of well-being, and it's almost finalised with, I think, either 1 more or 2 more to go.
Okay, so you've engaged local artists to, or local artists have been engaged to create these sculptures for the project?
Yes. Well, it was all locally, it would be all locally procured, done by local people, and the idea was it was to support local businesses as well in terms of supply. And so there is a plan with the Infrastructure Projects Manager about where these will be installed, and does it on the walkway from Mackie Collins Walk, across to the NPS, Victoria Oval, and there's also some sporting sculptures to be done that recognise the sports that are being played in Victoria, which is a part of it.
That's, how many sports is that for those sculptures?
Oh, that just relates to just sport in general. It's grant funded. It's up to the Arts Council to sort out exactly how and why.
Okay, so it's managed by the Arts Council, not Warren Council.
Warren Council is sitting to the funds. The Arts Council were to, within that budget, work out some sculptures with the Infrastructure Projects Manager that would fit appropriately and be set on concrete and installed properly. Yeah.
Okay, no, I was asking just to catch between public artworks, that the other committee with the public arts.
This is separate, completely separate. This was prior to the Public Arts, Public Arts Committee being formed. Yeah. So this is the Warren Arts Council,
yes,
which is a separate organisation to the Public Arts Committee. The Public Arts Committee was formed well and truly. Warren Arts Council has been in existence for 30 years or something. The Public Arts Committee has only been in existence for 12 months. So this was, they're two very separate, distinct. Yeah.
I understand that. I just wanted to clarify what this particular work was. I know it's been quite a sort of gap between the table tennis sculpture and then now.
It was a matter of people being in a drought situation, having time. Suddenly things changed about the time the grant funding appeared, and they just haven't had the time to actually get these actually undertaken. But obviously, it's getting very close now. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm just interested, the last, on page 89, there's that one about preparing Australian communities over stream Commonwealth Government resilience partnership with the EU with this for the November 2021
The General Manager just spoke about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I was out for 2 minutes. I missed it. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're attempting to try to organise a partnership with the Australian National University. It's a rather complicated grant application to the Commonwealth Government. It's no real cost to council, except $60,000 in kind of management costs, and an attempt to, and there's $200-something thousand worth of in-kind work going to happen by Australian National University. But we're attempting to try to work out a study of the November 2021 floods and how and what could happen to mitigate the floods both physically and economically, with some climate change stuff thrown in as well. And it's very complicated.
Has it got anything to do with the people?
To a certain degree, yes.
It would be comprehensive.
Summing up this project involves partnership with Australian National University to determine lessons from the November 2021 floods in the Warren Shire and a flood mitigation study.
So, to put in detail, I don't know. We weren't approached, so we were approached by this. This is not something instigated by Warren Shire Council. So we thought it was a worthwhile project in that it's not going to cost us anything except in time to at least see what comes out of it. You know, we need to keep in mind if you're part of these sort of things, then something, you know, potentially might lead to the Brian Egan Weir, which is part of the, you know, what we're talking about, raising some funds to get some scoping work done to see where that might go at this stage. Yeah, it's just that being at the table situation, Councillor Walker, just to know what might come out of it. Councillor White.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but we do have to be careful, like, with the Murray-Darling scheme, the current furor over floodplain harvesting, the backlash that's happening because the Quarry River floodplain plan hasn't been done properly. There's a lot of moving pieces in this place, and especially the work that hasn't been done on the Quarry Valley floodplain harvesting floodplain plan. We've got different government organisations and loggerheads, and we seriously have to be careful we're not deleting the sandwich.
Taking on board Councillor Whiteley, I think that our view would be we can steer it a little bit better if we're part of the conversation. Is what I would be suggesting in this. If you're not part of it, it's hard to make comment from the outside and give it any credibility. So on item 11, the General Manager's report regarding infrastructure projects and their report, their progress. Anything further on item 11? And nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour, against carried. Moving on to item 12, with Councillor Brewer to move this one, please. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Second to Councillor Brewer. Councillor Brewer.
I'm happy to do the recommendation. I said my piece earlier, stay on top of these notifications, because it's you get nasty reminders.
And then you get a final one, don't you?
Yeah, you get one within 21 days of potentially being fined. That normally rocks my boat enough to get it done.
Just do it straight away.
Yeah.
And that's right, do it, and you can give them a phone call to let them know that you're getting it done, or, but yeah, I think they have been sympathetic in the past if you call and say, yeah.
Particularly because most of ours, I assume all of ours, are nil disclosures and things like that, so it's not like there's anything underhanded going on.
Exactly. Thank you, Councillor. Anything further? I think Councillor Walker's correct. It doesn't take long to fill it out, and I'll do it. Any further on 12, the General Manager's report? We'll put that all as in favour. Against carried. Moving on to reports of the Manager of Finance Administration. First of those, being the reconciliation certificate for November and December. We can move those as one, which they're itemised as one, are they not? Yes, they are. No, they're not. Can we move those as one? Manager of Finance Administration? Oh, you put them back together, yeah, only one item, yeah. Sorry, that's what I'm confusing language. Someone happy to move item 1 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report? Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer.
I just moved the recommendation and noting the terrible interest rates there. Thank you, that's about it.
Division Manager Administration in relation to last Tuesday's meeting, induction, some days, is there any further funds coming? The outstanding, grant, funding that we have been operating on this week.
Nothing.
Since then. Yeah. Yeah, so it stays pretty much as is. Anything further on item 1 of the Division Manager Finance Administration's report? I'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 2, the statement of rates and annual charges as of the 14th of January. Someone have to move item 2 of the Division Manager Finance Administration's report there. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Brewer.
Just moving the recommendation, thank you, noting that we have a lower arrears percentage than recent years. That's a good sign.
Thank you. Anything further on item 2 of the Division Manager Finance Administration's report? With that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 3, Division Manager Finance Administration's report regarding works progress of infrastructure of projects. Someone has to move those. Councillor Bruce, you have to move that. Sorry, George. Yeah, you're happy to move that. And Councillor Brewer. Councillor Bruce.
Just moving the recommendations, and yeah, nothing further has happened in the front area there. Why?
Yeah. So just a clarification, if I might, for the Division Manager Finance Administration. So we have, do we have the ability to lay the carpet tiles and fit out the new interview, or is that still, that is within budget now?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, the figures that are showing in the spending are also committed, so we've already paid for the carpet tile.
Yes.
And we've already committed the construction of the interview room.
Yeah.
We've got a quote from A1 Glass, but they just haven't been able to come out and do it. So all that's been, orders been written and committed, and I've also put way to lay the carpet tiles.
Yep.
As committed, but they're not going to be undertaken until such time as the community, the interview room is actually finalised at the back door.
Yep. So
we
can afford to do the interview room and
the one that we won't probably be able to afford is you start moving the actual current tea room and making it just over 12 there, we won't be able to afford that this day. Yep.
And A1 Glass, have they given any indication of the likelihood of when they?
I've just said in the report, I've got them down, I've scheduled for after Australia Day.
I think I saw that, yes.
Yeah, which is what I was told by our builder.
Yep.
I don't know how far after Australia Day, but it's certainly not before.
That's right. Thank you for that. Very good. Any further on item 3 of the Division Manager Finance Administration's report along the works progress? Nothing further. With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the report of the Division Manager of Engineering Services. The first of those is the works progress report regarding the roads. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Brewer.
A comment, I guess. I'd like to see a roads committee meeting convened as soon as it's practical, please. Just so that we can get on top of this, that with the recent rain and harvest and whatnot, the roads are, well, I'd have to say, in worse condition than they might have been without the rain and harvest. The Combine Road's got some potholes that could lose a small car down. There's significant damage all over the Shire, and I've been on a lot of the roads recently, so we may need to, I guess, take a second look at some of that road maintenance in the roads committee. Now, the show goes on, I understand that, but just so that the committee's on top of it, it'd be a good place to start, I think, and the sooner we can get a roads committee up, I'd certainly be interested in stuck into it. That, and because we've got a couple of new committee members on council with us as well, it'd be really nice to be able to hit the ground running with it.
Councillor Bosky.
Just a request with regard to the first item there of the crews and where they're graded and that. Is it possible to have the period of time from when to when on the top of that? By 1st of November to the 31st of November or whatever period, the reporting period is?
Yeah. I don't see it as an issue, Councillor McCloskey, but I would hope that engineering don't see it as an issue either. It should be on the time sheets, etc. We should go, shouldn't be an issue at all. Yeah. Just, yeah, no, thank you for that. And then, what I'll do is also, more information this was done before it rained, after it rained.
Right, yeah, when it was, yeah. If one's used to.
Anything further on item 1 of the Division Range of Engineering Services report regarding roads? Councillor Kinsey.
We have a schedule of when roads are going to be done in the future.
There is it's in existence already, Councillor Kinsey, yes. Okay. But I'm waiting for your perennial question about the Tableton Lane. And
well, I want to ask.
I'm disappointed that you haven't.
Beat you to it.
I think that's the last one being done. Haven't died hard.
That's going to change.
Identify with this, Councillor.
Mayor, he needs to check.
I would ask for it.
I'm going to say you don't schedule. It must be a low priority.
Oh, I've never used to in the past. I was on it the other day and it does need a grader to go over it.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsey.
We're looking for something
Okay, thank you, Andy.
that's damaging the road too.
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, the councillor Kinsey would probably ask the resident of Tableton Lane to ride along Old Cypress Road and compare notes with the residents.
Similar condition, you think, Councillor Whiteley?
I would have taken
Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Any further on the item 1 of the progress report regarding roads? Taking on board Councillor Brewer's comments, roads committee meeting as a fairly high priority, I think is a very reasonable request.
Ask a question to Mr. Mayor. Do you get many blueies in from people complaining about their roads? Do you know?
I think about 1 to 3 is a road matter, just over 1 to 3 is a water sewer matter.
Okay. So that's where it's supposed to start from, isn't it? We guys in for complaints. So they don't complain, they must be happy with their roads.
Anything further on item 1 of the Division Manager Engineering Services report? Being nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Division Manager Engineering Services report, bringing work progress regarding town services. Someone having to move item 2? Councillor Brewer, thank you. Councillor Kinsey. Councillor Brewer.
It's quite pleasing to see that the cemetery is working correctly. I've had some positive feedback from that, the fact that it's available. But other than that, I'm just I'm happy to move the resolution as it is. Thank you.
Question on my to the acting division manager of engineering services. Smoke testing was done a number of years ago. Have you been back through the records and to identify that any problems that were identified at that time have actually been rectified before we embark on another smoke testing program? Because I did know a fairly expensive exercise, was it not, to do smoke testing? I've just forgotten it now.
If I may, yes, Mayor, it's not just smoke testing, it's the full CCTV inspection of all the gravity sewer mains. And the smoke testing is just an add-on to that program. The smoke testing shouldn't be a large component of that budget. But I have looked at it, it's hard to find the answers to whether any of those faulty areas have been rectified. Yes. So hence, whilst we're doing the CCTV inspection, they're there at that point. The same company should be able to do both of the two types of inspection. So the CCTV inspection and then also the smoke testing.
Thank you. Anything further on item 2 of the Board's progress report regarding town services? Certainly.
Well, my apologies, I just like to, or lack of attention, or whatever.
Yes.
Back to item 1 with regards to the traffic reports. Some of the locations I'm finding a little bit hard to comprehend where they actually are on the road, given.
Yes.
And we've got one in Narrabeen Shire.
It must be the boundary. I'm reading that as the boundary, but I don't know.
Some of them actually are good in terms of where they are, like segment 02 near the Cotton Gin, segment 00 top of the levee. But then on, say, the Tottenham Road 66, segment 14. Unless you're familiar with the road, you wouldn't, I don't know that anyone would know where segment 14 is on the road. So if you can have a more descriptive location with regards to a reference point, whether it be 2 kilometres south of the Thornton Road or something like that, a focal point.
Can I just throw something in there, Mr. Mayor? Councillor McCloskey, we made a call at previous roads meetings to take some of the detail out of this because there's comprehensive, just a stupid amount of information. They get moved around depending on need and road monitoring and trying to, you know all this, of course, but the greater detail and full reports are tabled at the committee level, and then from there we normally determine what's interesting, I guess, or has bearing on the decision making, and that's an attempt to take some of the fluff out of this report. And it's interesting, but I mean we all see 153 kilometres an hour as tops and those sorts of things. But my position is that those traffic counters are interesting, but they don't have a lot of bearing on anything at this meeting unless we're making decisions about the roads based on that information. I agree with you that they're hard to determine where they are and why they are.
Again, because some has the information given you, say, it may not be necessary in terms of the location, but if you can get a grasp on where it is as opposed to just segment 14 and then a focal point, I don't see that that's a lot of work, a lot of non-information.
And let's revisit that at the committee meeting and work out if you think there's value in it. Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, because if you're sitting here now, and again, no disrespect to the other councillors, and you're saying it's at segment 14 on road 56, you've got no idea where that might be.
Yeah, but the argument is that it's not informing the decision today. It's interesting.
No, it's not informing you a decision, but it's giving you an idea of the location along the road.
Yeah.
Yep, point taken.
Yep, point right. The fact that
I
believe we should be able to identify in the business paper any one of us the point that traffic counter exists. So that it just, I understand what Councillor is saying, and I think we just need to, the fact that it is possible on some councils, not possible on others, to be consistent and have a bet. Yeah, roads committee, let's go to you guys and see.
Yeah, let's take a committee and work out whether that's sufficient for what we do.
Thank you. So that's revisiting item 1, that information noted then. Moving back two items on to the, Division Manager Engineering Services report regarding town services. Anything further, council have a comment, questions relating to the town services report? Being nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 3, the Division Manager Engineering Services report relating to the Freedom Workshop. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Walker, second, Councillor Kenson. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm happy with the presentation. There's also just had a lot of things there about the close pumps. Are they owned by the council or are they by?
Some.
There's 10 of them that were purchased back in 98 to 2002. During this flood, one was in pieces, and it's just starting to be put back together, but nine were in use, plus lots of other little ones here and there.
We actually have 11 of those types of pumps, 10 that are mobile, that hook on the tractors, 9 currently available, and there's a permanently mounted one behind the central school at the end of Hale Street.
But then there was an additional coach hire ones, etc. That puts that with your own, the ones, then the rural fire service and town fire service have the ability to pump with their trucks as well, so.
It's very pleasing to see. I don't know where they all came from, the tractors, but they obviously came from machining places.
And you had his on standby at that time. We would have had to go out and damage the road to get it.
With,
Councillor White.
with your dogs, the community involvement in that, and Gary's, ringing up and calling around, that was fine. From my point, it was interesting. What, if I may ask, did happen to the gearbox of one that was put? Did it get fixed or?
No, it was getting fixed up and replaced.
Yeah, it's very
Bad time.
We've investigated to see what has happened with it. It appears as though it was removed for repair. Nothing was done to it, and at some point it's either been thrown out or it's finished.
So that's the gearbox on the pump at Baker School. Correct. Because that's the question I was going to ask. Where is that up to? Has that been fixed and rectified and back in place?
The new gearbox has arrived just before Christmas, the Christmas break, and so it'll be installed in the coming week or so.
And did you just say that there's now a permanent pump installation there as well?
Well, that is that gearbox is attached to that pump.
Yep.
That behind.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I misunderstood you, but as regards to a drive installation, be it a stationary motor that's permanently there.
No.
Mr Mayor, I think it was always set up long ago after that it was just another tractor that actually probably one of the ones that you get in that doesn't actually need to have 3-point linkage.
Yeah, the one that we had the PTO on the front of it.
Thank you, Councillor. It was gratifying during the lead up to the potential bad flooding event that we did have a meeting on Saturday got by Salt Council McCloskey and those who Steve Thornton, etc., who've been involved in previous floods were able to come in and share their knowledge with the present staff and really bring them up to speed, go through every levy point just to make sure that it was right, all the gates were right, etc., and just really clarify that. So I think it was a matter of everyone, but it was only a matter of making the phone call, and everyone was so receptive that ultimately it was absolutely a great effort just to keep everything under control and share the knowledge. And we'll have to say, there were some pretty good records the council did have and has had over the years for each flood. So again, General Manager's taken that on board, we'll add to that now, and hopefully this last flood is the one we've had, and we don't get any more this particular summer period, but anyway, it's the way it is. Councillor White?
Just on flood matter and the generosity of State Regional Council, when it was that donated the money for the rock that went into the levee. Is there any indication whether that was successful? Did it stop any further damage to the levee? Obviously, the political process of gaining money to repair that area is underway. The flood brought back to the four politicians and prosecutors those that the put in did it achieve what we wanted, or did it do it?
1,200 tonnes eventually went into the river.
I realise that.
And it actually, from what I reported, it slid down 5 times, another 4 times, and the 5th time it didn't. It stopped moving. It means it was a pretty big hole then. I certainly feel much more comfortable. You can actually almost drive a car along the back there now, which you would have been able to drive only just a quad bike previously. So I'm very comfortable now. We've still a little bit of tidy up work to do and pay for the rock. Managed finance and administrative services are pretty dear. But I'm very achievements, and Andrew says, but much better rock he says. Look, the $6 million project makes everyone happy. What won't be happy eventually is what percentage we pay of that $6 million.
I think, in a broad sense, we would be contending, though, that it was not a problem precipitated by Warren Shire Council's actions.
That's correct.
So we'll be working along those lines, saying that we should not really bear any of the cost of any rehabilitation work.
And that one, Mr. Mayor, more to the point that we keep control of how the operation's done. It doesn't become a practice public works job.
Absolutely not. There are people in this local government area who can't do a better job than, in my view, most. Then, I think we've had some experiences with public works and probably been disappointed with where that's got to. And I think we've seen the local contractors working in South Dubbo, etc., and do some work there that's on a par with what's required. And so, we'll be certainly, as we always have done, pushing for local contractors with their expertise to do the job that they require. Somehow we've got on to floods, but that's interesting. We're on item 3, the works progress report. Flood pumps, yes. Item 3, the Division Manager of Engineering Services report regarding the fleet workshop. Any further questions, comments regarding the fleet workshop? Councillor McCloskey.
I just note with interest some of our small fleet, our Toyotas, and that have been serviced in the workshop. Don't take them to Toyota anymore?
Some. We've got some owners, within reason.
Yeah, no, there's half a dozen or half a dozen, there's 3 or 4 I noticed that service is done. So warranty wise, in terms of that doesn't affect our warranty if we're doing the service or not?
No, if it's done by a supervisor.
I think we have to get the first 2 services to Toyota, and after that, it's fine.
Thank you. Anything further on the item 3, the Division Manager Engineering Services report? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Against carried. Moving on to the report of the Major Health and Development. First of those being the development applications. Someone happy to move those? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Second. Councillor Kenzie. Councillor Jackson.
Just happy to move that.
Yeah, the development applications, first item one of the, so item one of the divisional manager, just the manager, sorry, of health and development, those are the development applications.
Application approvals, yeah, sorry, no, that,
You happy to move the recommendation of
yes,
David?
yes, I am, beg your pardon.
Yep. And that was seconded by Councillor Kenzie. Councillor Jackson, anything to add to that? Nothing there.
Thank you.
Anything further, councillors? Questions, comments? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Major Health Development report regarding, excuse me, health, works progress. The works progress report, someone happy to move that? Councillor Walker, second. Councillor Kenzie, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to move the recommendation. Just probably following up the Mr. Mayor on the Beacon Drive to houses. They're trading on the progress of 15th of December, so has there been any movement since then?
We're working on a report, Committee of the Whole Place Council report, hopefully through the February meeting, but that's not guaranteed. We're going a two-pronged attack. We're actually trying to get them to fix things up, but as well as the other matter that's in confidential.
Thank you. Just another question for you, Steve. Finding the design of the transfer station for TIF being completed, they were going to do the drains pipe work November, which, as we know, was a flood, but is there any happened since then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've engaged a contractor and he's looking at around the 17th of January.
We had a problem in November. A few other things going on.
Oh, the tip, I'm sorry.
We can do a couple of things at once, but not everything.
Thanks for that.
Yes, Councillor Crosby.
Just, I know there was an incident at the pool prior to Christmas with access. Here it's got swimming pool double gates. Is that in relation to that access to the pool?
Improve the access, yeah.
Yeah, where there was a problem with the ambulance getting in.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was putting in this last year's budget prior to in relation to the ambulance incident, yes. Yep, so it was already in the budget.
Anything further on the Major Health Developments report, item 2, what's the progress report? If nothing further, we'll put that all those in favour. Against? Carried.
Mayor, this one's particularly something interesting for the councillors to actually to watch what we have to move, the resolutions to get into the committee as a whole. This the new councillors particularly. You'll probably find for a while what comes up on the screen to notice the process.
So, we're moving to item 7, there are no motions. No, there are no matters of urgency that have been raised. We are moving to item 9 on our agenda, which is the confidential matter. There are two Plus, we need to move out of the ordinary meeting into the confidential meeting, which is the closed council, meeting. So first I need a mover and a seconder in the resolution to proceed into the committee of the whole of council to consider the matters listed on the Divisional Management Engineering Services report and any other matters for which a separate resolution has been carried at this meeting. So, someone happy to move that? Councillor Jackson and Councillor Brewer. We also need a second resolution to exclude the press and the public from the committee of the whole closed council meeting for the reasons stated in the motion of the rules. So are those two councillors happy to move along that same line? Thank you. So Darren, we've got the recording off, have we not? Yep. And so we move back into open council now. We now need a resolution to adopt the recommendation from the committee of the whole. So the mover and seconder of the resolution within the committee of the whole, which is Councillor Brewer, Jackson Brewer, again. And there you'll see in terms of provision of the road stabilising material, it's exactly the same. It's moved, yeah, as adopted within the committee of the whole. Is there?
And if we had people here, we would actually read that out.
So we have to put that resolution now in open council. Is there anything further, any further comments, questions regarding that before we put that? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And let's go and get there. What is that? Thank you, councillors, for your attendance, and declare the meeting closed.